All right, YouTube friends, end of a very, very long day and weekend. Obviously, you could see Charlotte. Charlotte is in Jordan. Yeah, it's that kind of weekend. Jordan's in Charlotte. I'm back home in Denver after being in Indianapolis. Got home 7:15 this morning. I've been up since 4:30 a.m. Eastern. So I'm ready to just start this. What do you think, Jordan?
I think we should make this the longest podcast in history just
Oh
so you can go
gosh.
to bed.
I'm starting this now. Let's go. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck, and I'm along with my coworker, Jordan Bianchi. We are motorsports writers for The Athletic, and we've just been watching the Motorsports Christmas weekend, which is usually a Christmas day, but got extended this year. And in fact, is still going on as we speak, as the Xfinity race is in its second half. As we were recording this, we didn't feel like waiting until that was over to record this. We'll maybe be going long enough that the results will be done by the end of this. Who knows? But Jordan, it's been a very long weekend. We already did, myself and Nate Ryan did the Indy 500 version of this podcast because obviously they were on different days this year. So if you're interested in hearing about the Indy 500, that is in the Teardown feed, just one episode back. Check that out if you want. This one is going to be all about the Coca-Cola 600. You are there, Jordan. How you doing?
I am well. That was a heck of a race. That was a really good 600-mile race at Charlotte. And we've had two of them in a row now after a stretch where there was a lot of questions like, is this race necessary? Why is this is so long and excessive? Like, this is back-to-back years where this race has delivered. That was pretty cool to see.
So this race was almost 5 hours long, and yet I thought it was way more watchable than some of the shorter five. There's in some 600s that aren't even 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
There was one year, I think, maybe the one that Truex dominated or something like that.
You've
I
got
can't.
392 laps on a 400.
Yeah, I mean that race that could have been 2 hours and it still would have been less entertaining than this 5 hour race. So um, there was a lot of cautions, obviously, 16 cautions, and a lot of lead changes, 31 lead changes, which was the same amount as last year. Last year, there was 18 cautions in that crazy bonkers race. But, somebody messaged me earlier today, and when I was tweeting about the cautions, they're like, well, does that make it good or bad? To me, it depends on the type of cautions, because the cautions we saw tonight were drivers on the edge, losing it, making mistakes, often by themselves. And it
Yeah.
gave the impression, well, this is really hard to drive. This is really hard. And, some of the best drivers were making mistakes. When that happens to me, it's like, oh, okay. I'm not like,
Mm-hmm.
this is too much. This is, oh no, what a clown show. They're just running into each other. No, this is like, hey, they're trying to go for it. They're trying to go all out. And this track is just hard with this car. It's hard to handle. It's hard to control. And yeah, right. Like you said, I mean, this race had a lot of similarities to last year's race. And like, again, both of them were good, as you mentioned. So Coke 600 is definitely in a sweet spot right now. And again, without this car, I don't think we can say that at all.
No, and to your point about the cautions and how hard this is, I go back to Kansas, the last time you raced on a mile and a half racetrack. Same thing, a lot of cautions in that race, but they weren't cautions that were I don't know, unnecessary is not the right term, but they were cautions that show that these guys are on the edge and they're pushing really hard, and that this is difficult to do. That's what you want to see, because for too long we heard it like there wasn't a lot of cautions. This looked easy. The cars stuck through the corner. They're easy to control. Like, these cars are out of control. When you got a guy like Kevin Harvick, who's one of the best out there at getting everything he can out of his race car and doesn't make mistakes, and he makes a mistake, like that tells you like how hard this is. And
Kyle
I don't know,
Larson.
Kyle Larson's another example. Absolutely. Tyler, I mean, this goes on. Like, this was good to see. And the other big takeaway I had from this, we really don't know anything, because coming into this weekend, we've talked a lot about how Ford is not good on intermediate tracks and how they're behind Chevrolet and Toyota, and their only chances of getting a win is really on the super speedways. And Ryan Blaney can't win. And what's wrong with Blaney? What's wrong with Ford? What's wrong with Penske overall? Guess what? Like Blaney comes out and had led the most laps and had a really, it was a factor all race. And Ford looked really good. And we know nothing. We know absolutely nothing.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. I mean, Blaney would not have been one of the probably my top 10 picks to win this
Oh
race.
yeah, not even
I mean,
close. I mean, for sure.
he hadn't won since August 2021. And as you mentioned, Penske as a whole, Ford as a whole, has seemed down. And it's not like, I mean, you could look at the results and say, well, I mean, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, they all finished 30th or lower. Had they been up there, maybe it's a different race, but Blaney still led 163 laps. Like you said, he led the most laps. So
he was in the top 5. I would love to see his average running position. I don't have it in front of me, but he had to be in the top 5 all race.
yeah, no, I mean, he was third in the first stage. He finished fifth in the second stage. He won the third stage and he won the race. So yeah, he was up there all day. It was, and look, we've seen this kind of performance from Blaney before, but he doesn't close it out. And I mean, I think they had mentioned on the broadcast, like 11 previous times he had led at least 100 laps in his career and hadn't won any of them. He finally closes one out, and really drama free. I mean, there was really he pulled away from Byron at the end there. And, I thought coming in this weekend that I thought it was going to be, Byron was going to win. I thought maybe Larson would run second. I thought it was going to be those two Hendrick drivers, and they were up there for a little bit. But I mean, I just don't think we saw the Blaney thing coming. However, you step back and you look now. Hey, Ross Chastain has a bad day. We'll talk about that. I don't know why that happened, but he finishes 22nd, and that completely changes the points picture because he had a decent little lead. Now Blaney is within 1 point of the points lead. So all the stuff about, well, they're off or whatever, they're not. I mean, he's getting it done in some form, right?
Yeah. Ryan Blaney's average running position tonight, by the way, I just looked, third. That tells you just, that I would have never got. And I agree. Like coming into this race, the 4 drivers I would have picked would have been Byron, Larson, Hamlin, Truex. And then would have rounded it out probably with the other guy, probably the 2311 drivers and Bowman and Elliott, the usual suspect. I would not have had any of the Penske guys. Maybe Harvick would have been my only 4 driver that would have been thought about maybe picking. There's no confidence right now in that, and really Ford in general, but specifically Team Penske, they just have not had the speed. And this was probably the best race for Ryan Blaney beginning to end that he's ever had. Like we've seen moments from Blaney who's had really dominant races, led stages, led laps, and then for whatever reason he doesn't win. But I am hard pressed off the top of my head on a non-super speedway. Specifically like where he from beginning to end was a factor all day. This was really, really impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, as he said, he didn't make any mistakes. His team didn't make any mistakes. Like they just did what they were supposed to do, and they got themselves in position. I mean, Byron had that great pit stall advantage all day, and he kept picking up positions and positions, even though he didn't seem to have like sort of the winning car because he kept falling back, and then that's why he had to gain the position so often.
He was a short run. He was a short run car. Like he was good for like a couple, 3-4 laps, but then once everybody kind of got going, you were able to kind of run him down. But sometimes in these races, that's all that matters is short runs.
And Blaney admits afterwards, right there on TV, getting pretty emotional, like, hey, the self-doubt creeps in when you don't win for a while. And I know you asked him about it in the press conference, and you have a story coming out on that as well. But I mean, you could tell like this seemed like as much of a relief in some ways as anything, because it's like, all right, like, yes, we can do it. We are getting it done again after all this time. Obviously he was very happy, but it's like, they really needed this. They really needed this to get their season on the right path again and get that confidence again.
Yeah, you have to. It's like you almost have to sort of reminder, like you can prove to people, like, hey, we can win, because it's been so long. There's going to be that doubt, and you're kind of you really don't have to worry about him at the end of the race. Something is going to happen, like it happened at Vegas last year, like it happened at Homestead, and that was the wrap on Blaney. You can't. Not only can you not close out, you're probably going to do something self-inflicted to cost yourself a win. And I think that's a fair rap. Like that's the reality, because if you go back in even in 2021, like there was mistakes at Kansas that year that cost him a really, really good finish, which would have effectively put him in the championship four. And this is a driver who it feels like on a near, I know I say this because I feel like I pick him for a championship four every year. Like every year, it's like, oh, this is the year he's going to finally crack it, break through it and break in. And he just hasn't done it. And you're kind of just waiting and waiting and waiting. And you need to have that race. He needed this. It's not a must win, but like this was big. This was so big for so many reasons.
Well, and then you have people like, Kyle Petty on Nate Ryan's NASCAR and NBC podcast, maybe about a month ago or so now, where he says, look, I mean, Ryan Blaney is Casey Kane. I'm sorry. Like he just hasn't lived up to his potential. And I don't think that was an unfair thing to say. I mean, Casey Kane won some races, but everybody thought he was going to have more. And I think that's what people have thought about Blaney too. Like everybody sort of keeps waiting, like, well, when's Blaney going to sort of live up to what we think? This is a great first step, right? I mean, he's got that crown jewel for one thing, and that's big. I mean, we often look at drivers' careers. I mean, in the 75 greatest drivers project, Cup drivers project that we did, different from NASCAR's version, but before the season,
ours is better.
Well, ours was Cup only, and a lot of that weight when we're looking at that and ranking them and stuff, and looking at their highlights, we're looking at the crown jewel wins. We're looking at, sure, championships, but not everybody can win a championship. We're looking at, in modern day, Final Four appearances, but not everybody can even do that necessarily. So how else, total wins, sure. But like what really stands out is if you can win crown jewel races where everybody's bringing their best stuff. And, so for him to go do that, and especially, I mean, on a weekend where Penske's just won the Indy 500 and this gives them the sweep. I mean, I'm sure Penske's going to look very favorably upon him for this, So yeah, I just a lot of positives for Blaney. We know he's in the playoffs now, and he's going to have a shot at the regular season championship as well. So great way to start the second half of the regular season for him, for sure.
It is, and we've been waiting for this. And 2021, when he won 3 races, which was the first time he had ever won multiple races in a season, that felt like his kind of coming out party, like his long overdue coming out party. And Kyle Petty's comments were, I think, fair. I mean, they're very fair, because it feels like the talent's there. Like he's a guy who can win on just about any kind of track. He has the ability. And when your teammates are winning races by the bunches and winning championships, like it's fair to ask, why aren't you doing the same? And he had a great 2022. I think that gets lost because he didn't win a race. And maybe if he had things that played out a little bit differently, he could have been celebrating at Phoenix in the championship, but it didn't work out that way. And now let's see where he builds off of this, because this needs to be the beginning and not just kind of a blip.
So Jordan, I don't know if you remember this, but the Dover race, it gets pushed to a Monday, which pushed it to May 1st. So put this into this month of May. In our podcast, we said, in that Dover podcast, we said, oh, this is going to be the statement month, because now that we can lump Dover into May as well. So we said, look, we're going to see Dover, Kansas, Darlington, Charlotte, North Wilkesboro, a different situation, obviously short track and worn out. But those 4 races, we thought that is really going to show strength, because at the time in late April, drivers were saying, hey, when we get to Dover, that's when you're going to start to see stuff. So before this podcast started, I was able to pull up, thanks to Racing Reference, quickly updating the results and their great fantasy tool there. I pulled the last 4 races. I have all the stats here. So now, if you look at the statement month, the clear winner by far was William Byron. No surprise. He ended up outpointing Ryan Blaney, would have been second in points for this month. But he ends up outpointing Ryan Blaney by almost 30 points, and that's the next closest driver. William Byron this month, in this statement month that we talked about, had 4 top 5s. And, he won one of those, but pretty impressive. He goes 4th at Dover, 3rd at Kansas. He wins Darlington, and then 2nd at the 600. So, you know, I'm still sort of leaning toward Byron. You know, we say we don't really know anything, but I still feel like Byron, we can look at him and go, yep, he's
Yeah.
having the season I think that we think he's having. Now, on the other side of that, you know, and we've talked about this, you know, as recently as last week when Larson won at North Wilkesboro, but Larson ended this month 18th in the points for this month. He only had one top 10 because he has results like we saw tonight, you know, and they have the speed to win every week, but they just don't always. Something happens at times, it seems like. So just when we thought, oh, maybe the North Wilkesboro thing is going to show like, oh, you know, Larson is really now on it again, and maybe he's going to hit his stride. Now we see another inconsistent finish because he finished 30th. So I said Byron is first, then Blaney. Truex had the third most points. He ends this month with 3 top 5s. Do you want to guess who's fourth? What do you think?
I'm thinking off the top of Tyler Reddick. No, Bubba Wallace.
Bubba Wallace, that's right. Bubba Wallace had the 4th most points of anybody this month. 3 top 5s in those 4 races.
And he's the one in Talladega. No, Talladega's not counted, are they? No, it's
no.
not. No.
So yeah, no, the one where he went, let me see here. Oh, he had the 12th at Dover. So then he goes 4th at Kansas, 5th at Darlington, 4th at Charlotte. So, you know, they're looking certainly a lot better. Hamlin, despite wrecking out tonight, had the 5th most points. Here's another surprising name, the 6th most points this month, Chris Buescher.
Yep.
3 top 10s this month. Then you go Harvick, Keselowski, Chastain, the points leader, only had the 9th most points. Then Reddick. So anyway, I just thought I'd sort of share that since we had set up the month, and now to go back and see what we think. But still a lot to be decided, obviously. I mean, you know, but I still feel like despite, yes, you know, okay, I think the Ford thing definitely surprises me, and I still don't know what to make of that and Blaney in general. But I still feel like what we are thinking is the trends this season is still leaning that way after this month.
I got a question for you, just off the top of my head. If I was to give you Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, William Byron, Martin Truex Jr., and you get those 4 drivers to win the championship, and I get the field, would you take that bet?
So tell me again, you're not putting Chastain in that.
I am not putting Chastain. It's 2 Gibbs drivers, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., 2 Hendrick drivers, Kyle Larson, William Byron. You get those 4 drivers to win the championship. I get the other field.
I mean, you know, I would lean toward those being my final 4, basically. So
I think so too. I think so.
Yeah, I think those are still the, you know, Bell at times seems like he has something, but
I need to see more though.
Yeah.
Like I'm not seeing like tonight they led laps, but then they got mired and they got back and never recovered. Chase Elliott's average finish before going into tonight, Chase Elliott's average finish was 10th, which is very, very good. But again, he's not leading laps, not winning stages, hasn't won a race yet. And now there's other questions about him that we're going to probably get to. Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace are both running very, very well, but I like those 4 guys. I mean, those are the 4 guys. If you're asking me the championship favorites, like I think I'm putting those 4 guys in that top, in there, you know, top 4 spots in some order. And then below them, I throw Blaney, Reddick. I'd probably throw Logano in there just because of respect and just the fact that come the playoffs that this team figures out a way. So I just think it's going to be really tough. I just right now where things stand, those 4 guys seem like they've really in this month have separated themselves from everyone else.
Yeah. And also I think it's going to be a really interesting battle sort of for the points championship now, because the top 6 drivers in points now, again, with Chastain having a bad night, the top 6 drivers in points are only separated by 17 points total. Bell is 6th in points and he's 17 out. of the championship. So, I mean, there's going to be quite a scramble between Chastain, Blaney, Byron, Harvick, Truex, and Bell. And again, Larson, we feel like is a name that needs to be up there, but he's 11th in points because of the inconsistency. So now let's talk about Chastain real quick. What happened?
I don't know. I mean,
I mean,
bad night,
this should have been a track that we
mile and a
usually
half
see him.
in the
Yeah,
mix. Like if he's in the mix, he's in contention, he's running well, or running in the top 5 or the top 10. Like they were off. They just did not have the speed. I don't know. And I guess the question has to be asked, and maybe this is way too big of a leap, and it's really hard to take too much takeaways from the All-Star race, but he was a complete non-factor there. In the 2 races we've had since Darlington, and then in the aftermath where Rick Hendrick calls him out and Justin Marks says that, hey, I'm going to kind of pull the reins back on him a little bit. He's been a non-factor. Maybe that's just a coincidence. Maybe there's other. It's just I don't know. But I think that was the risk that you say when you go public like that and you say you're going to pull the reins back on him and you need to tone it down a little bit. Is he dialing it back too much?
yeah. I mean, it's tough
hard
to say, right?
Yeah.
Because these 2 races, one being the All-Star race, I don't think it's enough for us to tell yet that it's a trend, but I certainly think it's something to watch, right? Like if
your ears perk up,
right. And you would think he'd be able to go run well at Gateway. So if he has another quiet race there and then Sonoma going into the off week, that should be a track where he should be in contention for the win.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very weird. It just is so, I mean, but he was in contention he was the story all the time. And then all of a sudden, like you said, they come out and say, well, we gotta pull the, he's being too aggressive. We got, whatever. And all of a sudden he just like disappears sort of. It's very odd. I don't know.
Which to me goes back to, and we've talked about this, is like if you're Justin Marks, I don't even think I make those comments because even if there is no correlation of the lack of performance last 2 weeks and what was said, like there's still people going to be drawing that line. And all you're doing now is opening doors to people questioning of what's going on. Why did are you holding him back instead of something else being the true answer? And it was just unnecessary, and you created something that didn't need to be there. It'll be interesting. I mean, again, this maybe is much ado about nothing, but this was a race. This is a style of track that he has done very, very well on, and I don't think he got any stage points tonight. And that's very rare for him to do that because the reason he was the points leader this year, because the finishes are inconsistent, but he was the points leader because he was running in stages so well in winning stages and finishing up there. And he didn't do that at all tonight.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, let's see. So after Darlington, despite the high profile incident that was, he had a 27-point lead. So he coughed up 26 points of his points lead right there. And we know that's going to be super valuable for playoff points, 15 playoff points, the regular season champion. We're 3 wins. So I'm sure this was just not a good all around night for them at all. But just, yeah, I mean, you'd rather be answering questions about why you wrecked going for the win than, hey, what happened to your speed? How come you guys aren't running well? Now, again, I do think it's too much of a leap at this point, but I also think it's worth watching and little note to ourselves, keep an eye on it, but just odd just to happen that quickly. Now, should we talk about Chase Elliott?
He's got to be suspended, right?
Well, let's talk about it. Let's just talk through it. So my interpretation of the incident is pretty straightforward. Hamlin had seemingly walled him a couple times. They had contact, whatever. There was some 3 wide, whatever. Let's say Hamlin is completely at fault and walls him or whatever. I still don't think there's any circumstance in which you can retaliate by right rearing someone on a straightaway at a 1.5 mile track based on the precedent that we saw last year, just last fall, with Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson. Now, couple things. So some people say, well, Bubba chased Larson all the way down the track to get that done, whereas Elliott just immediately, he went straight for a moment and then he decided to hook him and wreck him. I don't really think that's a difference at all. You personally, I think you right rear somebody on straightaway. That's unacceptable. NASCAR has said, and by the way, I saw some other people on Twitter. Well, part of the Bubba thing last year was that he walked all the way down and then pushed Larson.
No,
and
that was
blah,
not
blah.
it at all. That was not it at all. And that had factored not at all into anything that NASCAR ruled.
NASCAR said that afterwards. O'Donnell said that.
Yes.
He said, no, that this was for the right rearing someone on straightaway. Now, there was a question also of, did Keselowski get into Elliott that got him? Now, I see everybody. I see your screenshots, everybody. I think Keselowski got into Elliott moments after Elliott turned into Hamlin.
Yeah.
I've watched the replay over and over. There's GIFs of it, whatever. Elliott hits the wall. He goes straight for a second, and then he turns Hamlin. He wrecks him. It's retaliation. It's blatant. I do not buy, of course, at all his explanation that, well, once you hit the wall in these things, you can't drive it anymore. We saw multiple times tonight. Christopher Bell, Brad Keselowski,
Tyler Reddick,
Eric Almirola, Tyler Reddick.
Yeah.
They hit the wall pretty hard.
They were fine.
And they kept going. So I don't buy that, well, you hit the wall, and then all of a sudden you can't drive and you just suddenly veer completely left into somebody. Also, let's say for a moment that did happen, that his car broke, the tow link broke, whatever, and he veered into him. Well, to me, your reaction would be like this. You know what? I was really mad at Denny. He walled me twice. And I know what this looks like. I know it looks like retaliation.
You would be emphatic about this.
Right. I did not intend to do that. My car broke. I know how bad it looks, but trust me, I would never want to tear up my stuff, somebody else's stuff. I would absolutely not do that. And look, again, I know how it looks, but that's not my intention at all. Yeah. But his interview wasn't like that at all.
No. That was a driver who knew he had to be very careful about what he said, because anything he said was going to be used against him in the court of NASCAR law. And you make a great point. Like, if he didn't mean to do that, you were standing on top of the mountain shouting, "My fault. I'm sorry. I hope he's okay. Didn't mean to do that. Oh my God. I hope he's okay. I'm sorry to those guys. My fault." All of those things. You'd be on social media posting things. You would be owning it left and right. You'd be falling on the sword. There's none of that.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Even if you were mad at the person, just because tearing up equipment, if you didn't mean to, is like the next level for a driver. So,
and especially when you could have at a mile and a half racetrack with the speeds head on into the wall, the safety risk and all of that stuff. Like, you know what that means, and you want to make sure that you care about. You want to make sure that you express the sympathy for him and make sure his well-being is, he's okay.
Yeah. So look, I get why Elliott would say that. Of course, we've seen the precedent. They have to say that. NASCAR's put them in this box where they have to say that. Thanks to the Denny fine, they cannot.
I wouldn't even say that. I would say, honestly, I don't even think it's the Denny fine. I think it's what happened last fall with Bubba, knowing that NASCAR suspended a driver for
That's
this.
fair. That's totally fair.
Yeah. So
that's totally fair. I agree. So anyway, that was my interpretation. What is your,
I agree. Like, the evidence is, even before Denny tweeted out the SMT data and everything else, I thought Clint Boyer did a really good job of breaking it down on the Fox broadcast. And I think Tony Stewart did as well. Like, they were pretty clear cut. Like, they showed it. I mean,
they went back to it too later.
Yes, they went
after
back
sort
to
of some of the social media outcry. They went back to it and said, "Now let's look at this again. This is what happened. Look, he hits him before Keselowski hit him. Yeah, they showed it all. I mean, it's also I don't think you need if you look. I'm not trying to insult anybody who feels differently than me, because I know I've seen enough people on Twitter that I know there's a sizable number of people who didn't agree with my interpretation of this incident. However, I would argue that if you've watched racing for a while, you don't need any SMT data to determine what happened there.
No,
That
I didn't.
is
I could see it as clear as
right.
day. Like, and I don't, yeah. I mean, did he go? He did not do what Bubba did and go down the racetrack as many lanes and clip. Did he? It doesn't matter. He intentionally turned in left and hooked a driver on the racetrack at a part of the racetrack where you're carrying speed and put them at risk on a mile-and-a-half racetrack. To me, that's all there is. Like, it doesn't matter when you do that. When you turn left and hook a driver in that situation on a style track like this, you get what's coming to you, and that should be a one race suspension. Deserved.
By the way, we are not, you could name driver A and driver B, and we go back and listen to our podcast from Vegas last year. We immediately said, Bubba must be suspended.
Yeah.
He's going to get suspended. You can't do that.
No.
You can't do what he did to Larson. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the drivers. That act of, we've decided, NASCAR's decided, this is collectively the industry, everybody said, this is a dangerous thing. You can't do this. This is an era of heightened safety concerns with this car as well. And you don't just give somebody a tremendous hit like that. Now, I also saw fans on Twitter who were saying, well, what's he supposed to do? Denny walls him twice, or Denny walled him, whatever. What's he supposed to do?
Not turn intentionally into him and crash him on a mile-and-a-half rastrack. Would be my
chase him down and maybe door him, or try to bump him up into the fence or something like that. But the whole thing about right rearing somebody, which gives them a head-on impact into the wall, that everybody has decided that is collectively not okay.
Yeah.
Therefore, if NASCAR is going to be consistent, the only thing they can do is suspend them. If they do anything else, I don't see how. I'm going to be very confused. I'm going to be very confused if they say, well, you know what, that's not going to. I just don't think that's going to go well.
The precedent's been set, and it wasn't set that long ago. And the circumstances are very similar. Mile-and-a-half racetrack, off a turn 4, driver turns left and hooks a competitor
because he got run into the wall.
Like, to me, this is very clear cut. And I wrote about this when the penalties came out against Hendrick initially earlier this year. Like, there is a belief in the garage that Hendrick gets away with things that other teams don't. And I already had somebody in the garage tell me, like, man, if they don't suspend Chase, that's just gonna be NASCAR letting Hendrick go. And it's like, you don't want that perception to be out there, but that is. And I think they will. I think they will. I think they know they have to, and I don't expect them to do anything less than issue a one race suspension.
I will also say I do want to touch on that decision and the implications of Chase's decision as well. But I want to touch on for a minute why. Let me try to think about why people would want to defend that or deny that the intent there. First of all, okay, like, because you could say, oh my gosh, like, how can you not see that? It seems so obvious, because to me it seems so obvious. But if you're a Chase fan, now obviously, look, some Chase fans are going to go, yeah, no, he did do that. But some of the ones who are trying to come up with all these various, twisted sort of logic to make it justify it or whatever. Well, why would they do that, right? Are they seeing something else? I don't even think it's that. I think it's that if you're a fan of somebody, and part of that is you are invested in their actions, you're invested in, hey, like their personality and how they conduct themselves, and you sort of want them to do the right thing because you don't want the person you're rooting for to, like, I really like Damian Lillard on the Portland Trailblazers, right? If Damian Lillard got in trouble for something or did something that was unsportsmanlike or whatever, it'd be like, oh man, I hate that, because like that's sort of like my guy, right? So putting myself in Chase Elliott fans' shoes, they're like, well, he wouldn't do that. He was justified to do that. No, No, there was a reason that happened. No, he got hit from behind by Keselowski, and that's how it happened. No, his car broke. That's how it happened. So I get why people would want to come up with reasons. Respectfully, I just don't think that that's accurate. I think he lost his cool and turned him.
Wait a second. You're telling me that fans sometimes have a warped perception of reality of when their favorite team or driver or player does something wrong?
Well, I'm just noting
No
that
way.
to, I think the reaction is, the tendency is when there's a divisive thing on social media or whatever, you just think the other people, people call the other side idiots, or, well, how can you're a moron, whatever, right? So I'm just trying to say, well, what are some of the reasons why they would not feel the same way about this that I do? I feel like I'm looking at it objectively. Obviously, some people disagree, but many people disagree. I got some. It made me want to lock my.
I love how you have to explain like fandom though. Like this is sports fandom though, man.
Okay, well, I just wanted to sort of. I was just trying to give a little head nod to the Chase fans out there who are screaming at us right now.
It's your favorite driver. It's fine, but like that's take off the 9 goggles for a minute. And this was a really bad choice, really, really bad decision. And there should be consequences for this. And we will find out tomorrow or Wednesday, likely, that what that is.
Now let's talk about the implications of this, Jordan. Going into the weekend, I believe, so the qualifying, the bullpen, the media bullpen was rained out. So you guys had like a Zoom with some of the top drivers, including Chase. Now I saw a clip from Bob on the Zoom where Bob is basically asking Chase, like, you're actually not that far out of the points. Like you're like 60 something out. I think that was the number. And Chase was like, oh, that could be doable in 13 races.
Sure. Especially when you're averaging a 10th place finish.
Right. And now, Chase said, well, it's not going to change my plan. Like I need to win. And if you're not going to be winning races, you're not going to have good playoffs anyway, because you're not going to have playoff points and you're not going to be in contention for the title. But, a moment like this where, hey, like William Byron, Kyle Larson was going to, until his mistake, he was going to have a top 5, top 3 run. To give yourself a 34th place finish that Chase did and leave with 3 points. That's not good. Number one, I mean, you don't know what would have happened late. I mean, maybe Chase gets up there in contention for the win. We don't know. But number two, this decision, let's say it does result in a suspension and he's out for Gateway. Well, you just gave yourself one less race that you have a chance to win. Mm-hmm. And now you're going and it's like, okay, now we really have to win even more. It's just, for a veteran type guy, that I think Chase is a veteran at this point, not such a young guy. He's always been sort of wise beyond his years and mature. I just this just didn't seem great. It didn't seem like a great moment for him.
This was not the most auspicious time to do something like this, because it now kind of feels like it does eliminate that outside possibility of making on points. And I think that was a long shot, because that benchmark is going to move. Guys are going to win races. There's going to be surprises, that kind of thing. And that was going to be hard to do. And you're going to have races too where you just don't run well or things happen. But now you have, like you said, you have one less race now. You can win. And when you look at the performance between the 5 and the 24 versus really the 9, and I would throw the 48 in there to some degree, though it's hard to do that because of, Alex is just coming back. Like there is definitely a schism there, right? The 9 isn't doing what the 24 and the 5 are doing. He's not leading a bunch of laps. He's not winning stages. He's not winning races. There really isn't anything about what Chase has done since he's returned that says this is a guy who's going to run off a bunch of wins. Now, to his credit, it can change like that, but it hasn't so far. And I say this because every single year, it feels like, and I think this is probably true, there's always at least 1 or 2 drivers that don't win races that completely blow us out of the water, right? A year ago, no one would have thought for a second that Martin Truex Jr., who almost won the championship the year before, or Ryan Blaney were going to both go winless. Well, they both did. We've seen Jimmy Johnson do it. We have seen it before where guys just have these years where, whatever reason, it doesn't happen. And I'm not saying that's the case with Chase Elliott, but until he wins a race, he certainly falls into that category of possibly that guy. And there's a lot of races left, a lot of good tracks, and I mean, at the end of the day, I think he wins the race. But it's just, it's just unnecessary. It's just unnecessary, and it's also an unnecessary distraction, and everything that this entitles. And well, it's not going to blemish his career forever. It is a pot mark on it. Like if you get suspended a race, like that's something that's on your record, right? And that's you don't want that.
I mean, to your point, just looking at, he missed those 6 races, and even through that whole time, we kept saying, look, he's going to win. He's going to win a race. As well as Hendrick's running, as well as, we know he can win anytime. And I still, like you said, I still think he's probably going to win. But the more time that goes on now and the fewer the races get, it becomes like, well, it goes from he's going to win to like, well, he has to win. And like, okay, now he's really, really got to win. And as it ticks down, and you don't want to get in. I mean, look, he's got road courses coming up, but road courses this year are not as easy. I mean, Reddick's really good now. I think he's got to beat his own teammates, Larson, Byron.
There's slugfests where chaos happens around you and you get caught up in it, and it's not easy to.
Allmendinger's going to be out for blood in these.
Oh, absolutely. He's going to Cindric too.
Yeah, because he's having a bad, sophomore year.
Yep.
But yeah, like to your point, so Chase came back at Martinsville, so he's now been back for as many races as he was out. He's been back for 6 races. Let's see, since he's been back, he's led a total of 29 laps, if I'm looking at this correctly. 29 laps. He led 18 laps at Talladega, 5 at Kansas, 6 tonight before the crash. So, again, it's just they've got to find something else. And if he's going to be out now, it's just not going to be great. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And of course, maybe Denny finds himself in another position where he's going to have to pay somebody back or vow payback or something now.
I would say Denny Hamlin's another guy too who went winless recently. In 2018, he was a guy that you always think is going to win races and did win a race, which completely surprised everybody. So you just don't know. You always get those surprises, and maybe Chase is the year this year, and we'll see. It'll be interesting. I think in the grand scheme of things, this is going to be a blip, but man, like you make a good point too about Denny. Like Denny's got a long memory, and Denny's kind of in that give zero bleep mode of like, if you screw me over, I'm going to come out looking for you. And he was pretty fired up after Chase. Like, I mean, understandably so. So it'll be interesting to see how he approaches this. Like maybe he isn't. Maybe if Chase is in position to win a race, Denny's going to do what he can to, prevent him from happening.
Yeah, it's not going to be out of the question, although better not say it on your podcast. That's all.
No, don't say it on your podcast. Big lesson here.
Yeah. So let's see, what else from tonight jumped out at you in terms of the racing or results? Harvick goes second to 30th, back up to being in contention. Ultimately finishes 11th, but it was like what an up and down day for that team.
He just impresses me so much. He and Rodney Childers, like what they do. We sit here and talk about how Ford doesn't have this and Stewart-Haas Racing is, struggling. And it's like, they don't make excuses. I mean, everybody knows what they're dealing with, but they just go out there and they're freaking third in points coming into tonight. Like they just do it. Like that is the definition. You want to know like a team that's gritty? Like this is it. Like they just figure out a way every single week to get the best finish absolutely possible. It is so impressive. And you can't help but wonder, like, if they could just figure out, they can find more speed in their race car, if Ford can give them more cars, Stewart-Haas can get their act together, whatever that is. Like, Kevin Harvick's final season could be pretty darn special.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of a shame where it just seems like a down year for the organization, for the manufacturer, and he's going to go out, you know, sort of with one hand tied behind his back, trying to win these races, trying to
That's
do one
exactly
last. What?
I was gonna say. That is exactly what a Ford crew chief told me today. It feels like we have one arm tied behind our back most weeks.
And then they won.
And then Blaney won though. But like, you
Yeah,
know,
no, but I'm saying a Ford
yeah,
won.
the
But
Ford did, yeah.
yeah.
So
Um,
Bubba too, by the way, 3 straight top fives, which is so impressive. Like, and that was a
yeah, I
team
mean,
that,
both 2311 cars get a top 5.
yeah,
Now, interesting that Alex Bowman, look, I mean, you know, you could say he returned from a broken back, but I mean, his back is still healing. Like
yeah,
he's racing with it, but it's not like he's all healed up. I mean, he had to endure 600 miles, and he finished 12th. And in the process, it was a good enough finish that he moved into the number 16 spot in the playoffs on points. So, I mean, that just shows you what a good, I mean, because remember, he was really far up in the points before his injury.
and the
But
points penalty,
what's that?
and the points penalty,
Oh, that's right, 60, right?
yeah,
Yep.
like,
So, you know, you're like, well, you know, once he comes back though, from missing the races, he's gonna have to win, because you can't miss what, 3 races? Did he miss 3 races? 3
yeah,
races
3
plus
races,
All-Star.
3 races plus the All-Star race, so 3 points races.
3 points races. You can't miss 3 points races and just make the playoffs on points. No way. But
Yeah,
he comes back and he's immediately back in the playoffs on points.
he's had, yeah,
Yeah.
he's had a really, I mean, great year. Like before he got hurt, I think Elliott passed him now in average finish, but he was leading in average finish this year coming into tonight, or second in average finish behind Elliott tonight. Like he wasn't blowing people's doors off like his teammates were, but he was just doing what he needed to do, and it doesn't seem like he missed a beat and everything. And good for him. Now I don't think they have the same speed in the race car as the 5 and the 24, but if you can keep doing this every single week, it doesn't matter. You're going to get the playoffs, and it's really impressive that he's still in this position. It also speaks to the fact that when he was out, the guys that he's now racing with for the playoff, that last kind of final playoff spot or two, or they did not take advantage at all, and they left the door open, and I think it's going to hurt them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the other part of it, right? Like the bottom of the playoff bubble, sort of like the Chase Briscoe type area. I think Briscoe was the one he passed in points tonight. Yeah, they just haven't been able to find the consistency they need. Just looked it up, and after the Coke 600 now, Bowman does have the best average finish in the Cup Series this season, 10.5. Blaney is next with an 11.7. So, yeah, I mean, it's having a good year. People don't talk about Bowman, but he's there.
Credit.
Yep. It's got to win, though. I mean,
gotta win. That's the thing. Like when you've got teammates like Byron and Larson who've got multiple wins, and I think we both expect them to continue to accrue wins. Like you got to win. That you got to win races.
Yep. So Zane Smith, I was like, I don't love this strategy. Stays out on 14 lap older tires and everybody else, restarts P1, only car to stay out. And it's like, well, this is, I mean, because remember he was driving for Front Row tonight, which booted Todd Gilliland to Rick Ware Racing. And no, you know what? It ends up working. And he was able to salvage a great night, 10th place finish, top 10 for Zane Smith in the 600. So that's a pretty good run for him. Austin Dillon, who's had just a miserable season, it feels like, he gets a 9th place run. Another good run, Buscher, Stenhouse. Stenhouse is up there all night in the top 10.
Keselowski too, like both RFK cars tonight were running really
well.
Fred was running really, really well, and then got caught up in that incident, and it's unfortunate because he had a
couple. Keselowski had a couple things that ruined his night, it felt like. But yeah, he had the speed for sure to probably run in the top 5. It felt like, and he ended up finishing 19th, which is a bummer for him. But it never really felt like Logano got up there.
No, he had just a bad night.
Yeah.
The issue on pit road too, they lost track position, never got it back, and
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Priest ended up, I mean, for how the Stewart-Haas car started off as well, Priest ended up 13th. So that's
Yeah,
pretty
and
decent.
that's the weird thing. Like we were talking about this during the race, like oh, so and so's not running well, and it's like I really try hard not to make. There seems to be like almost two races. You got the first half of this race is kind of running daylight, and then that second half is run at night, and then there's attrition and everything. So it's really hard to kind of so and so is terrible, but then so and so leaves, with a top 10 finish. It's like
Yeah.
you kind of gotta wait to. I'm guilty of this of making rash judgments about guys like, oh my god, this guy's having a bad night. And then, oh, by the way, he left with a really good finish. So it's an interesting thing. Zane Smith continues to impress, man. Like I'm gonna write about it this week on the Athletic. There's a lot of people impressed with him, and he's gonna be someone to watch in the free agency this year because
Ooh,
uh,
are you having your big free agent
this is
look story this week? Your annual?
this is the week.
Oh, always right around Charlotte time, huh?
That's not a coincidence.
Okay, I like
Well,
that.
this is when this is when things really start to get in motion, and really now with three consecutive races in the Charlotte area, like there's all these conversations have been ongoing, and I'll be honest with you, this is going to sound a little weird. Like front row and what front row decides to do is going to have a huge domino effect, potentially on everything else because they basically I'm kind of summarizing here, but they have three drivers: Todd Gilliland and Michael McDowell and Zane Smith, who they really like. Zane's the only one under contract right now, but they only have two Cup rides, and they're not going to expand to a third Cup team. So there's only going to be two drivers for those spots. Who they let go, or who decides to leave, or whatever reason, is going to have options. And if that ends up being Zane, and our team comes along and says, "Hey, we want to buy out Zane's contract because we like him," it's going to be something to watch and where he ends up. And I think if that happens, it would be a Ford team that does it.
Jordan, I think it's time for the was a good race poll because I'm about to fall asleep.
Oh,
No
come on,
offense.
this is fun. We should keep it in the Xfinity race. Let's just do this. We could do like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing and just do like live commentary in the race.
There's still, as we speak right now, there's still 22 laps to go in the Xfinity race, which
Okay.
means that who knows, there could be 10 cautions or something and make us go another hour or something. I'll tell you what, normally, so
I have a lot of inappropriate jokes I could be making right now. I'm just not going to do
it. It's been great the last few years, I'll be honest, because, I get up at the crack of dawn for Indy 500, get up at 4 a.m., get to the track, around 5 something, make sure I'm there for the opening, the cannon fire at 6.
Oh yeah. Oh, the cannon.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. If you're not there by the cannon, you're in traffic.
Yeah, I know.
So our colleague, our poor colleague, Bob Kravitz he does the Indy coverage for us, Indianapolis coverage. He was at the race. He said he left, he made the mistake of leaving his house, I think yesterday morning for the Indy 500 at 7:30 a.m.
Ooh.
He said he sat in over 2 hours of traffic.
We got to get him a police escort, man.
Yeah. So that's why I get there early. I know. Anyway.
The cannon's overrated, by the way.
I'll tell you what, I know you haven't been to the Indy 500 in a few years. Cannon's way better now. Roger Penske upped the cannon and he added fireworks.
I hate fireworks. Fireworks are stupid.
Are you just trolling?
No, I'm serious. They do nothing for me.
Add another thing to your hate list. What are we up to now? Oh, cool. What do you like?
What do I like? I like you. You're my friend. I like you.
You hate children. You hate Christmas. Yeah. You hate fireworks. Wasn't there something you else hated recently?
There's a long list.
Oh, so much hate in the world, Jordan.
Fireworks are silly, especially at 6 a.m. Like, come on.
Anyway, so what I was trying to say was that I've kind of enjoyed the 600 the last few years because by the time I get done writing at Indy and I leave the track, I'm exhausted, but it's usually like stage 2 is like already over the 600. Yeah. So I get back and I get in front of the TV and I watch like maybe part of stage 3 and stage 4. and I see all the sort of like the good part, the crazy part, whatever. This year I had to get up early for my flight home. And then we have this, I mean, I know you're at the track, so I feel worse for you, but you know, the delayed Xfinity race, the Xfinity race is supposed to run this morning, gets delayed and delayed. Then they have to run it after Cup, and then the whole 600, and now still going on. What is it? It's almost midnight there.
That's 11:20.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
I mean, if I leave here before 1 a.m., I'll be shocked.
Well, at least you're going home. So anyway, can we just do the was it a good race poll?
If I say no, can we just keep talking and run this out?
Oh,
because
nobody wants to listen to this at this point. Anyway, I'm fading. I'm telling you.
Cranky Krabby Jeff is my favorite.
I'm not cranky. I'm just
I
don't have anything for you.
You get cranky when you don't get sleep. So that's the road we're going to go down.
So, you know, last week we did we showed our guesses at the same time for Wilkesboro, and we were both way off.
Yeah.
Way off. I said it was gonna. We both thought it was gonna stink, and we completely underestimated how much people were gonna pump it up just because it was Wilkesboro.
I tried to sell that, and you blasted me for that.
That's not true. We had pieces of paper and we showed them at the same time.
I understand it, but I explained my answer, and I said I think people are gonna like focus on the North Wilkesboro stuff and be back here and all the good vibes, and you were like, no, racing is gonna override all that. You influenced my answer. Yeah, I do.
I didn't influence your answer. We wrote it down on a piece of paper at the same time.
I think you said that before, actually, and it influenced, going into it, the preamble.
Anyway, you won.
By the way, can we talk about go ahead. I don't like the fact, too, another thing I don't like, that the Coca-Cola 600 has 4 stages. Drives me crazy.
Why?
Because this race now is the most important regular season race on the schedule, because there's more points offered in this race than any other one. It shouldn't be that way.
I thought that when they first started doing it, but I mean, who cares at this point? They've been doing it that way for like what, 5 years or something or more.
It doesn't mean it's the right way. It doesn't mean they can't change it.
Are they going to change it now?
They should
be like, you know what? After these several years of doing it this way, now we're going to go back to only 3
realized
stages.
that we realized that we just
you want 200-mile stages?
Yeah,
Those are like entire races.
That's the thing. When you have 600-mile race, you're gonna have to make some compromises.
Anyway, you get to go first for the poll. Would you like to know what last year's was? Because I think it's a comparable race.
Yeah.
I believe it was 90.6 last year for the 600.
Oh.
Is that higher than you thought?
No. I mean, it's kind of what I thought it was. I knew it was high. I don't know if this one matched it, though. I was going to say, I thought it was going to be somewhere in the 80s, so I was going to be closer than I was. I'm going to say 83.
Oh. I think it's going to be higher than that. I do. Why? Okay. Why do you think? Explain your reasoning why so low.
Blaney, it wasn't. I mean, it was a fine finish. The racing was great. It wasn't like a barn burner finish. Blaney was comfortably ahead. It didn't have like, oh my, one of those holy cow moments. I don't think in the grand. I think, years down the road when you look at this race, the biggest takeaway is going to be, the Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin thing. It's not going to be like last year. You had so many wild, crazy things that happened that you can point at, and this year just kind of lacked that a little bit. Just kind of lacked that wow moment. So I'm going to say 83.
All right. I think it's going to be higher. I was going to say 87. I am sort of thinking of like, what would be the reasons where somebody would say no? I just don't see a lot of reasons where somebody would watch that and go, nah, that wasn't good. I didn't like that because of X.
Well, if you're a Chase Elliott fan, I can think of a reason.
Well, it wasn't like he was taken out. That was part of it. I mean, he took himself out essentially. Well, I guess they don't think that.
Oh, no, Jeff. No. Brad got into him.
Right. You're right.
And then he didn't have control of his car because he hit the wall and things broke.
Right. That's right. I forgot. So yeah, I'll say 87. and you say 83 and
Yeah, good race though. I mean, really, really good race.
oh
This
yeah,
was,
absolutely. Way better than perfectly acceptable. It was a good race.
oh, this was a very, very good race. I was
Yeah.
very happy with this.
Okay, so since you're trying to kill time, as there's 8 laps to go in the Xfinity race now.
See?
So, and I think Dale Jr. was the one that brought this up on Twitter. We talked about this, I think, after the Roval last year.
Oh, it's yeah.
Yeah. So should there be no Roval? Put 2 races on the Charlotte Oval now with the racing being this good on the oval.
If I'm Marcus Smith, I'm announcing tomorrow our playoff race is going to be on the oval, and we're getting rid of the Roval. Like it's just not. And I like the Roval. I'm not like some people who think it's a parking lot and it's back, manufactured. Like I think it's a good race. I think it's entertaining. I think it delivers more often than not. It's but I just look at the action you've had in the 1.5-mile racetrack
Right.
last year, this year, and really intermediates in general with this car going back to Kansas and other races. Like, this is good stuff, man. This is really, really good stuff.
Give me a 400-mile playoff race on the Charlotte Oval with a lot
Hell
on the
yeah.
line. Oof.
Hell yeah.
With the way the racing is right now on the ovals.
Race. This would be a cutoff race too. Like,
oh, that's right.
Yeah, like, give me that, and the added pressure of this is in Charlotte. Everybody's here. All your sponsors are here. Like, I just think this would have been that would be what people want. That's what gets people excited. And if your idea is to give people events and get people buzzing, like the Roval is kind of falling off a little bit. So go back to the oval. Why not?
Well, listen. The Roval was much needed when there was only 2 road courses. That gave everybody a 3rd road course. Now there's what?
And one in the playoffs too.
Right. So I almost feel the same way as I do about the Indy road course, where as NASCAR is looking for different places to go, and a lot of the roadblocks I run into is, well, there's already so many road courses. We could go to potentially some different markets or something, say like a Portland, where the Xfinity races go, the Xfinity series is going next week, and that would get them into the Pacific Northwest, say, right? I'm just speculating on places where they could go. But it's like, well, the Cup already has so many road courses. You can't really add more road courses. But if you take away like the Brickyard and turn that into the oval again, or you take away the Roval, which could happen, yeah. It's going to. You take away the Roval and you turn that back into oval. All of a sudden you say, well, wait a minute, now we have a couple more slots on our schedule for oval, for road course type stuff.
Sure.
And maybe that's the way you get into new markets. Maybe it's a different street race somewhere, whatever. But that opens it up, and it doesn't oversaturate it by taking some of those off. So, and I think right now that's a great trade. Who wants more short tracks right now with this package? Nobody. But more intermediate tracks, absolutely.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is, you take the Roval off, you lose the only road course in the playoffs. I would like a road course in the
You can figure something else out.
I don't disagree. I don't know what that answer is though, because you look at date equity. I really like where Sonoma's at. They've made that, they made it work in June. Watkins Glen in August is perfect. Maybe that, Indy is off the table. I don't know what that answer is. And you can't run Coda in the fall because that's Formula One time, so I don't know what that answer is, but your point, like, you go to a new market, maybe that's the selling point. We're going to a new market, come watch a playoff race here. Who knows? But I do want to make sure you have a road course in the playoffs, because I do think that is important to have, a representation of all of the different tracks on the schedule in the playoffs.
That's a good point though about Coda, because I was about to say, well, you could move Texas to where Coda is now, and then you could put Coda in the fall. But like you said, I mean, that's right next to the F1 date. Unless you want to try to do like a companion-ish type thing with F1, like run it the week before, the week after or something, whatever, all the stuff's still set up there. By the way, race over. Justin Allgaier just won by 8 seconds, it looks like, over John Hunter Nemechek. 900 miles of Charlotte is complete. Ty Gibbs did all but I think 2 laps. Justin Haley, I don't know where did he finish in the 600. He finished on the lead lap of Oh,
Yeah,
Justin
he-
Haley finished all the laps.
Yeah, 15th, 400 laps. Junior
Yeah.
Motorsports, his first win of the year, by the way. First win of the season, I should say.
Wow, how about that? Worth
Yeah.
staying up for them.
I enjoy
All
it.
right. So yeah, anyway, next week it's Xfinity in Portland, Cup at Gateway. We will both be home at our respective houses because I'm in a wedding.
Ugh.
So on Saturday. So
Open bar?
Open bar. I don't know. That's a good question. I'll get back to you on that.
That's important.
You like weddings? You hate weddings?
Weddings are great if they have an open bar.
Oh, only if there's an open bar. You just
Makes it a
want the
lot
free
more-
booze.
Yeah, not gonna lie about that. Yeah,
Okay.
makes it a lot more tolerable. Tell you that right now.
For somebody that never wants to get married,
No.
you like weddings. Well, that's whoever is trying to loop you into getting married to them just needs to offer you like, well, hey, Jordan, like we could get married, but like, no, I'm never getting married. No, we'll have an open bar at our wedding. Sold.
I like weddings because it's a great way to meet new friends.
Oh my God, this guy.
Why are you
Well, on
laughing?
that note,
I'm trying
everybody,
to be personable. I
on
like-
that
I
note,
like
we'll leave
meeting
our
friends.
Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson wedding crashers friend behind, and we'll
Once crashed a
say
wedding, by the way.
goodbye until I'm sure you did crash a wedding, Jordan. It doesn't surprise me at all. Anyway, everybody, thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time when we have more energy on the Teardown. All right, YouTube friends. That's that. I'm spent. You seem to have more energy, but
I'm fired up, man. I got writing to do still.
you need to go home, Jordan. You need to go home. You've had a long day. What time did you get the track today, Jordan? Tell everybody.
What time did I get the track today? What time the Xfinity race was at 11? I got here 9:45.
So you've been at the track for 14 hours?
Yeah.
I
I'll
think
be
it's
here
time
for
to go
another
home.
probably
And
2.
how long were you at the track yesterday? To see
I
nothing.
actually did not come yesterday.
Oh, veteran wise move. I'm so proud of you.
Well, if this race hadn't been minutes from where I live, I was helping out you were at Indy, and I was kind of helping on the back end of the Indy coverage, right? And so the Cup Series garage didn't open until 3. And I was like, okay, well, I'll go to the Cup. I'll go to I'll go to Charlotte at like 1:30, 2 o'clock, finish up what I need to do there. It was pouring rain. And I'm living 10 minutes, I live 10 minutes from the track, and it's pouring rain. Like, I'm not going to go, there's no point. So I'm like, well, I'll go after the Indy 500. I can just watch it. Race ends. It's about 3 o'clock when the Cup garage opens. It's pouring. It's still raining. Like, okay. I'm like, is it really like worth going for? And I waited. I kind of checked around with a couple of people because Charlotte's a really good opportunity to like mingle and talk to people who are in the garage and everything. Well, no one's here. Most of the people are home because they don't want to be at the track in the rain. And I was like, I'll just wait and kind of see where things are at. And it was pretty obvious pretty quick of where this was headed. And I was just like, I'm just going to keep sitting here until I kind of have a better idea. So.
All right. I'm very proud of you, Jordan. Very proud.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We'll end it here. Talk to you next week. See you, everybody.